Chapter 630 Qianqiu Wuhan. Chapter 630 Qianqiu Wuhan. Bang! 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 On each of the platforms, a fierce battle was taking place as the sounds of intense combat continuously echoed throughout the area. Among the 5 battles, 2 of them were settled in a short moment. Beizong King and Zhuge Qing, from the ancient world and the eternal world, were kicked out the battlefield by the puppet fighters. As for the other 3 battles, they lasted a little longer than the first 2, but they still ended with the 3 challengers failing in less than 15 minutes. In short, the first batch of challengers all failed. The geniuses all forced a bitter smile after seeing the results. The puppet fighters are so incredible, I don't think I can hold on for even 3 breaths against their attacks. There's no way I can survive the second round. Even though we can't make it to the next round, we should try our best to prolong the battle and draw attention from the sections. Most of the participants knew that their failure in this round was certain, but they still wanted to do their best. The second batch of challengers, the host read out 5 more names. The moment their names were called, those people immediately went onto the platforms to fight. As time went by, batch after batch, the geniuses went forward faced the challenge, but most of them lost the battle while only some really powerful ones made it to the next round, and all of them were from the eternal world. So far, 1/3 of the participants from the ancient world had tried their luck on the platforms, but none of them had won. Xue Feng, who had previously been defeated by Feng with 1 strike, had managed to hold on for a moment when fighting against a puppet fighter as powerful as Feng, but she failed in the end without a doubt. Now, it's time for the 41st batch. Feng, Kong Yuan, Xue Ho, Xian Yuan Wudao, Yi Jia. At this time, another 5 geniuses walked onto the platforms. The geniuses from the ancient world all looked up towards one of the platforms, only for the reason that their number 1 expert, Feng, was on it. In no time, Feng was locked in a fierce battle with the puppet fighter. Just like the 5 puppet fighters, Feng had comprehended the first level of the destruction Dao. He had even made some progress in the second level, which resulted in him having a better comprehension of the Dao than the puppets. Not only that, the saber technique he displayed was so forceful and domineering that it overpowered the puppet's spear technique. With all this combined, he was able to gain the upper hand in the battle and suppress his opponent completely. The battle lasted over 15 minutes like this, which really astonished many geniuses from the eternal world. Sure enough, Feng survived this round. The experts in the Skyward Pavilion had also witnessed Feng's performance. Even though Feng is from the ancient world, he is highly gifted in the destruction Dao. Go find him and tell him that we'd love to accept him as an outer disciple. The voice came from the room of the 1,000-star sect. Tell him there is a spot for him as an outer disciple. Many top sects hurriedly sent their invitations to Feng, but all of them only offered the position of outer disciple. As for the 3 magnates, Feng was still beneath their notice. Meanwhile, on the drill ground, the battles continued. From the Eternal Worlds group, a red-robed man with red hair caught some eyes. As he walked forward slowly, even his eyes had a red shine to them. The moment he stepped out from his group, he attracted everyone's attention, including the 3 magnates and the experts in the Skyward Pavilion. It's him. Good Lord! He is Qianqiu Wuhan, a peerless genius who has the ability to be in the top 5 among all the challengers in the Firmament Territory Feast. Some of the geniuses from the eternal world frowned at this red-robed man with a hint of fear in their eyes. After all, this man was the most outstanding one among the super geniuses that had drawn the crowd's attention in the first round. Of course, Feng, Huiying, Bing Shan, and Jian Wushuang could be called super geniuses as well, but only within their own group. In the first round, Qianqiu Wuhan demonstrated his power by defeating his opponents like a storm of lightning. No one knew exactly how powerful he was, but they knew that he was terrifying. With his level of power, he can directly beat the puppet fighter down. Yes, he can, but I wonder how long it will take him to do that. I bet he can do it within 10 breaths. Geniuses from the eternal world were discussing the matter with interest. In the rooms on the top floor of the Skyward Pavilion, the 3 magnates kept a close eye on Qianqiu Wuhan. They were all looking forward to seeing his brilliant performance. Under all those eyes, Qianqiu Wuhan moved onto a platform. Start! As soon as the words were heard, the puppet fighters all made their moves. Qianqiu Wuhan acted at almost the same moment. He stretched out his hand and punched toward his opponent in a gentle and casual way. Boom! The puppet moved back rapidly as the sound rang out. A moment later, another palm carrying a formidable power landed on the puppet. Boom! The powerful puppet fighter was smashed into pieces under the force. Chapter 631, Jian Wushuang makes his move. Chapter 631, Jian Wushuang makes his move. Upon seeing the puppet fighter which fought with Qianqiu Wuhan being directly destroyed, all the people on the drill ground quieted down. Was the puppet fighter broken? He only attacked twice, with the first palm slapping the puppet fighter away while the other directly smashed it. After all, the battle strength of the puppet fighter was equal to Feng, who was one of the top 20 geniuses in the Firmament Territory feast. Additionally, its body was stronger than an ordinary skyscraping realm warrior. However, it was still smashed by 2 palms. How powerful was he? How terrifying! Too strong. This guy is simply a monster. Countless geniuses widened their eyes in awe and horror as Qianqiu Wuhan slowly walked out of the battlefield. Many of these geniuses couldn't hold out against the puppet fighter for long, and some of them were even defeated by it very quickly, but Qianqiu Wuhan had smashed it with only 2 palms. There was a huge gap between their strength. After seeing what happened on the battlefield, those experts from all sects in the Skyward Pavilion couldn't calm down at all. The 3 experts on the top floor who represented the magnates were a little excited. Qianqiu Wuhan is very impressive. He has an extremely great understand of the Raging Fire Tao, comprehending the first level and most of the second level. Besides, the secret skill that he created is extremely powerful and can completely display his comprehension in the Raging Fire Tao. How amazing! He fought in the first round of the genius battle, but his strength wasn't that exaggerated. It's clear that he didn't use his full power at that time, and what he just revealed might not be his limit either. The 3 experts representing the 3 magnates all spoke highly of Qianqiu Wuhan. The experts from the other sects were also shocked by Qianqiu Wuhan's display of strength. Given his strength, this Qianqiu Wuhan could definitely have won first prize in the sum of the previous Firmament Territory feasts. The previous champion's battle strength is actually slightly weaker than his. But the geniuses in this feast are all stronger than the previous ones, so it's not yet clear whether this little guy can rank first. Yes. It's a little early to confirm he'll be the first, but he'll at worst rank third. Go to tell Qianqiu Wuhan that we, the Immortal Dynasty, are willing to offer him admission as an inner disciple. Tell Qianqiu Wuhan that if he joins us, Cloud Sea Asgard, there'll be endless cultivation resources available to him. Elder Fire, from our Boundless Demon sect, has the strongest comprehension in the Raging Fire Tao among all the Eternal Realm cultivators in the Firmament Territory. Tell him that as long as he's willing to join us, the Boundless Demon sect, I'll personally recommend him to Elder Fire. The 3 magnates and various top-class sects all invited Qianqiu Wuhan in succession. As for the medium and small sects, they all knew clearly that top geniuses like Qianqiu Wuhan were talented people that they could never possess. They also knew that they couldn't win against the top-class sects, so they were sensible enough to not even try inviting him. However, there was an extremely special existence among all the sects, the Ancient Sect. Generally speaking, the Ancient Sect could compete with the 3 magnates in strength, but they didn't do anything after Qianqiu Wuhan showed his strength. In the room where the Ancient Sect was, Xian Yi, the purple-haired man with a gentle smiling face, looked down towards the drill ground. Qianqiu Wuhan. He has good talent, but these geniuses are far more gifted than those in the previous feasts. There are at least 3 geniuses who can compete with him, but they aren't in a hurry to expose their strength. After all, no one knows what they'll encounter in the 3rd and 4th round of the genius battle. The more strength they hide, the more trump cards they'll have, which will also increase the possibility of them winning. So, this Qianqiu Wuhan is a bit impatient. Xian Yi shook his head and just watched quietly. He didn't ask the white-robed man to send out any invitations to the geniuses on the drill ground. The second round was still going on. The shattered puppet fighter had been replaced and it was Jian Wushuang's turn after this batch of geniuses. Under the watchful eyes of the other geniuses and the sect experts in the Skyward Pavilion, Jian Wushuang entered one of the battlefields. While standing in front of the puppet fighter, he could clearly sense the pressure it released. Start! Outside the battlefield, with the shout from the middle-aged man, all 5 puppet fighters moved at the same time. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang clearly heard the wind-breaking sound in front of him as the puppet fighter's figure appeared, holding a long spear. The moment the puppet fighter stood in front of Jian Wushuang, the long spear fiercely struck at him. A mighty power burst forth immediately. Jian Wushuang had seen other geniuses fighting against this puppet fighter outside the battlefield, so he had known a little bit about its strength. Thus, he dared not be careless. Boom! Jian Wushuang radiated killing intent as he held the heart-killing sword in his hand. A bright beam shot out as he directly chopped at the fighter puppet. The whole area suddenly fell into darkness. Jian Wushuang directly displayed the superior rank 1 secret skill, Cataclysm skill. Bang! There was the sound of a tremendous collision as a great pressure arrived, causing Jian Wushuang's face to instantly darken. He staggered and immediately took a quick step backwards. Its power is genuinely strong, but it's still weaker than Feng's attack. Jian Wushuang was forced to step back, but a smile appeared on his face. The puppet fighter's strength is good, but it will only keep this up for 15 minutes. I don't even need to display the world Dao. Hua! The puppet fighter flickered about like a ghost, forcing Jian Wushuang to retreat as it quickly rushed to attack him. The long spear in its hand lunged out like a poisonous snake. Swoosh! 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 Spear shadows darted forward like a poisonous snake's tongue, so quickly that no one could see them before they came into contact with Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's vision darted about like lightning while the sword soul in his sea of consciousness was emitting sword soul power. Jian Wushuang wielded the heart-killing sword, producing sword shadows and releasing an incredible amount of power as he fought against the puppet fighter. Their battle was extremely intense. Jian Wushuang was completely suppressed, but there was no sign that he would be defeated. Ha! In the Skyward Pavilion, the experts from the different sects all looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. This little guy has great talent in sword principle. Yes, his sword soul power is extremely strong. It's much stronger than many sword principle geniuses. Chapter 632, Barely. Chapter 632, Barely. All these experts had very sharp eyes, so they could tell that the reason Jian Wushuang was able to fight against the puppet fighter for so long was that his sword soul power was very strong. A sword soul's strength was determined by the user's talent in sword principle. The stronger the sword soul was, the more gifted they were in sword principle. Therefore, they thought Jian Wushuang had a good talent for sword principle. However, they didn't know that this wasn't the peak of Jian Wushuang's sword soul power at all and that he was merely using a portion of his sword soul power. Emperor Shao told me that my sword soul is the strongest sword soul he has ever seen and that it is unusual. So he asked me not to expose my strongest sword soul in the Firmament Territory feast. Because of that, I can only use a portion of my sword soul power and I have to purposely hide my sword soul phantom so that no one will know I have awakened the strongest sword soul, Jian Wushuang thought as he fought with the puppet fighter. Emperor Shao warned him about many things before Jian Wushuang left to attend the Firmament Territory feast. Because his flawless foundation and sword soul were very significant, Emperor Shao reminded him not to expose them easily. As for his other abilities, there was no harm in exposing them. Therefore, when Jian Wushuang engaged in close combat with the puppet fighter, the physical strength from his foundation and the advantage from his bursts of spiritual power had not been completely put on display. He had hidden most of his sword soul power. But, even so, the experts from the sect still thought that Jian Wushuang was quite gifted in sword principle. 15 minutes quickly passed. Jian Wushuang exited the battlefield. As he exited, he noticed that many of the surrounding geniuses were staring at him with very strange expressions. This boy. He has already reached his limit. Yeah. It was clear that he was about to lose and that as long as the puppet fighter made another move, it might have defeated him and sent him out, but the 15 minutes ended just in the nick of time. He's a lucky dog. These geniuses could tell that even though Jian Wushuang passed the second round, he barely passed. Barely, just barely. Everyone could see that Jian Wushuang had been one-sidedly beaten by the puppet fighter the entire time. If it kept attacking Jian Wushuang, it would win eventually, but time ran out. My performance in this second round really did look like I reached my limit. Perhaps everyone thinks I passed this second round because of luck. Jian Wushuang looked around, but he was laughing in his heart. He didn't care at all about what these geniuses thought of him. They were free to believe that he barely won if that's what they wanted to think. It was only the second round anyway, and there would still be a third and fourth round in which he would have many opportunities to reveal his strength. In the Skyward Pavilion. This boy has good talent in sword principle, but it's a pity that he's weak in comprehension of the Tao and he's still far from complete comprehension in the first level of the Slaughter Tao. Besides, he's from the ancient world. He is good talented since he was able to get to this point from the ancient world, but he is much weaker than the geniuses from the eternal world. Passing the second round is already his limit. As for the third round, he has no chance of passing it. The experts from the sects talked casually as they laughed. There were only a few small sects and one medium sect that sent people to invite Jian Wushuang. As for the three magnates and the top sects, they didn't do anything. But in the room where the ancient sect was, Xian Yi, the purple-haired man, looked at Jian Wushuang with a lot of interest. That little guy hides his strength so well. Xian Yi smiled. There are quite a few people hiding their strength in the Firmament Territory Feast, but he is one of the few who is hiding their strength the best. The other experts felt that Jian Wushuang's strength was very normal. Only Xian Yi saw at a glance that Jian Wushuang had hidden his strength very deeply. I've seen so many sword principle geniuses and even some sword principle experts, among which were many great talents. But, no matter how gifted they were in sword principle, it wasn't enough to influence me. However, this little guy, his sword soul actually caused my sword heart to become a little excited, haha. He's not simple. On the drill ground, the second round was still in process. It went on for a whole day and night before the second round was finally over. After the second round, only 124 of the 1,000 talents who emerged from the first round were left. These 124 people were eligible to enter the third and fourth rounds of the Genius Battle while all the others were eliminated. Among the 124 people, there are only 6 from the ancient world. Jian Wushuang frowned. The 5 people next to him included Feng, Huiying, Bing Shan, Xianing, and Wu Huang, who all stood there and frowned as well. The 5 of them, plus Jian Wushuang, were the only 6 among the 100,000-odd geniuses in the ancient world who survived the first 2 rounds of the Genius Battle. However, there were still 118 talents from the eternal world remaining. The difference was too obvious. Of course, those who could still stay after the first 2 rounds were very excellent. They were all transcendent talents. In the Skyward Pavilion, plenty of sect experts were considering what conditions they should offer to attract the top geniuses on the drill ground. At this moment, Xian Yi, the purple-haired man in the ancient sect's private room, finally made a move. Give the 6 tokens to these 6 people. Xian Yi passed the 6 tokens to the white-robed man. The white-robed man nodded respectfully. Although he was surprised at Xian Yi's decision, he left immediately. Seeing the white-robed man flying out of Xian Yi's room, many of the sect experts in the Skyward Pavilion immediately looked at him. After all, this was Xian Yi's first invitation to the Genius Battle. They were all very curious about who the ancient sect, which had a great position in the whole Firmament Territory, and Xian Yi, who was called the #1 Eternal Realm Cultivator in the Firmament Territory, would choose. A large number of the sect experts, including the 3 people representing the 3 magnates, stared at the white-robed man. When the white-robed man appeared on the drill ground, he directly walked toward the 6 geniuses from the ancient world. Feng, Huaying, Bing Shan, Xianing, Wu Huang, and Jian Wushuang. The white-robed man spoke in a cold voice. Jian Wushuang and the other 5 people immediately looked at him. These are the tokens that Master Xian Yi from the ancient sect ordered me to give you. After saying that, the white-robed man threw the 6 tokens to the 6 geniuses. The white-robed man didn't hide his voice in the least, so the surrounding geniuses from the eternal world heard it and instantly fixed their sights on Jian Wushuang and the other 5. Chapter 633 Xian Yi's Token. Chapter 633 Xian Yi's Token. The Ancient Sect. Master Xian Yi. All the people were startled. All the geniuses here had carefully read the information on the sects and clearly understood the ancient sect's position among the sects in the firmament territory. Although it was one of the top 9 sects, the ancient sect was stronger than the 3 magnates in many ways. Especially when it came to cultivating disciples, the ancient sect surpassed the 3 magnates. Otherwise, it could not have produced so many experts. It could be said that the ancient sect's appeal to these geniuses was no less than that of the 3 magnates. Master Xian Yi. He was the strongest person in the eternal realm in the firmament territory, with an outstanding level of strength and identity. This same person, Master Xian Yi, not only personally watched this genius battle from the skyward pavilion, but even directly offered tokens. But he gave those 6 tokens to the 6 people from the ancient world instead of the top geniuses from the eternal world. What was going on? Even the 6 people, including Jian Wushuang, were a bit confused, not to mention the geniuses from the eternal world. Although they could hardly believe it, Jian Wushuang and others still accepted the tokens, at which point they heard a message. I am Xian Yi, from the ancient sect. The performance of the 6 of you in the genius battle is very good. The 3rd round will be very important. After that, I will decide whether to accept you as a disciple of the ancient sect, so I hope that you will display your full strength in the 3rd round. The message was simple and did not directly invite them to join the ancient sect. However, after receiving the message, the 6 geniuses, including Jian Wushuang, became greatly excited. The ancient sect. Huaying clenched his hands with burning eyes. I thought it would be good enough if there was a top sect willing to accept me as an outer disciple. Bing Shan, who wore a white robe and had a cold expression, stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. The ancient sect? Feng raised his head as his eyes narrowed slightly. The geniuses of the eternal world looked over at Jian Wushuang and the other 5 with a little jealousy. It's the ancient sect. Even we are not eligible to be invited by the ancient sect, but these 6 people from the ancient world actually got tokens from Master Xian Yi. When it comes to talent and strength, Feng is the strongest among the 6 people from the ancient world, but he can only rank in the top 20 among us. And for Wu Huang, Jian Wushuang, Bing Shan, and Xianing, they are at bottom among us. How could they also receive a token from Master Xian Yi himself? What exactly is going on in the mind of Master Xian Yi and the ancient sect? This question not only bewildered these geniuses, it also puzzled the experts from the sections. Mr. Xian Yi is interested in the 6 little guys from the ancient world? The evil girl from the Boundless Demon sect asked telepathically with a bit of doubt. Haha. Xian Yi didn't hide his thoughts and spoke directly. We, the ancient sect, value geniuses, but there are 2 kinds of geniuses. The first type are the ones who possess excellent talent, while the second are the ones whose minds are as firm as a demon. Personally, I prefer the second type. Compared with those geniuses from the ancient world, these geniuses who were born in the eternal world have too many innate advantages. They're endowed with unique advantages and can easily reach the skyscraping realm. It's very seldom that they encounter obstacles or go through hardships, so they tend to have a bad temperament. But those little guys from the ancient world are different. The cultivation condition in the ancient world, which is a plain world, are pretty bad. There are numerous warriors in a plain world, but few people are able to reach skyscraping realm. Anyone who makes it had to face endless setbacks. Their wisdom has already matured, and it's not an exaggeration to say they're quite clever. The eternal world is deadly and dangerous. If someone wants to survive in it, a good temperament is the most important asset to have. After Xian Yi finished the sentence, quite a few of the sect experts in the Skyward Pavilion agreed with him. Temperament was indeed extraordinarily important for surviving in the eternal world. Of course, there were some people who were displeased with his words. Xian Yi, we're here to choose talents. The reason why we choose them is to make them experts who can support our sections. We aren't choosing them to help them live a long life, the black-haired elder from Cloud Sea Asgard sneered. That's what Cloud Sea Asgard is doing. The disciples in our ancient sect only cultivate to live happily and leisurely. Whether we're strong or weak, it's enough if we can keep living happily, said Xian Yi. That notion isn't right. No wonder you can't become the fourth magnate in the firmament territory, the black-haired elder sneered and said. In that case, it will be enough for you to take away those 6 little guys from the ancient world. If you don't compete with us, then we'll accept all 6 of them, Xian Yi immediately said. That's fine then, you can have them. They're merely 6 little guys from the ancient world. The black-haired elder was dismissive. Since Mr. Xian Yi wants those 6 little guys, with the Boundless Demon sect, we'll definitely give you face. The evil girl from the Boundless Demon sect spoke directly. We, the Immortal Dynasty, aren't interested in those 6 little guys at all. Since Mr. Xian Yi wants them, I won't compete with you either. The arrogant middle-aged man from the Immortal Dynasty also agreed. Well then, thank you, all of you. Xian Yi gave a faint and mysterious smile. On the drill ground, the 124 talents who had passed the second round of the genius battle were quietly waiting for invitations from the sections. There were indeed many white-robed people flying out of the Skyward Pavilion in a row at first, representing the sects and delivering invitations. But the invitations quieted down after half an hour. After that, under the surprised gazes of these geniuses, a lot of experts flew out of the Skyward Pavilion and immediately left. Why did they all leave? The geniuses were all confused. At this moment, the middle-aged man that was presiding over the conference spoke again. After the second round, it will be a month before the third round begins. I'll take you to a place where you can rest for this month. Hearing this, the geniuses couldn't help wondering. The third round of the genius battle wouldn't be on until a month from now. Take us to a place. Jian Wushuang cocked his eyebrows. Where will he take us? Chapter 634, Enlightenment Mountain. Chapter 634, Enlightenment Mountain. Bewildered, the geniuses who passed the second round left the drill ground with the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man quickly took them to a towering mountain. Here we are. The middle-aged man stood in the air and pointed toward the towering mountain in front of them, then said, "This is Enlightenment Mountain. There are many cave mansions on the Enlightenment Mountain. You can stay here for a month and cultivate. Go!" The middle-aged man waved and did not explain anything. The 124 geniuses were confused, but they rushed toward Enlightenment Mountain since the middle-aged man told them to. However, as soon as they reached the mountain, the geniuses immediately noticed there was something unusual about it. What's going on? Why do I feel like it is easier to comprehend Tao here than it is in other places? Right, I feel like that too. All the geniuses were surprised to find that it was much easier to comprehend the Tao here. This Enlightenment Mountain actually has such a kind of ability? With a hint of surprise in his eyes, Jian Wushuang immediately found a cave mansion and entered. As soon as he entered the cave mansion, he found it easier for him to comprehend the slaughter Tao. It's faster to comprehend the Tao in the cave mansion than outside. These geniuses also quickly noticed this point. They couldn't help being overjoyed. Naturally, all the geniuses found their own cave mansion and began to comprehend and cultivate. At this time, no one wanted to think about anything else. All they were thinking about was cultivating and comprehending. They meditated on the Tao they had comprehended. They found that meditating on the Tao here was at least twice as fast as in other places across the world. That was to say, 1 day of meditation in the cave mansion was equal to 2 days outside. Besides, they could stay here for a full month. A month was brief, but they could reach a new level in Tao comprehension with such great cultivation conditions. We're here to see who can make the most progress. Sitting cross-legged in the cave mansion, Jian Wushuang knew very clearly in his heart why the man wanted them to stay here for a month. What kind of person could be called a genius? Those who had a gift. And what was the best way to demonstrate how gifted they were? Progress. The speed of progress was also the standard for those sect experts to choose talents. This month seemed short, but anyone with real talent would be able to make a lot of progress under such conditions. 1 month. A spark flashed through Jian Wushuang's eyes. A month was a short amount of time, even for the top geniuses here. They could make progress this month, but they couldn't make much progress. But Jian Wushuang was different. He had just broken through and took the first step in the heaven-treading realm. He went straight to the firmament territory feast immediately after making his breakthrough. But the greatest benefit of the heaven-treading realm was talent in comprehension, which was very different from the skyscraping realm. He was already an absolute genius with a flawless foundation, and his talent was so great that he was by no means weaker than the 123 geniuses that were currently at Enlightenment Mountain. Furthermore, his talent in comprehension directly became 10-odd times better after reaching the heaven-treading realm. His current level of comprehension was already beyond imagination. 1 month was enough to increase his strength by leaps and bounds. Now I just have to wait and see how much progress I can make in 1 month. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, with a glimmer of expectation in the eyes. Then, with a thought, an identical figure appeared beside him. The world body and the slaughter body both began to focus on cultivation and meditation in this cave mansion. There were many geniuses in Enlightenment Mountain, but they were all currently busy in their own cave mansions, so none of them would bother Jian Wushuang. Time went by slowly. In a flash, 1 month had passed. Come out, all of you. The middle-aged man shouted out from above Enlightenment Mountain, but his voice contained magic power which transmitted it to all the cave mansions. Those geniuses, who were completely absorbed in meditation, were immediately awakened, one by one. The 2 Jian Wushuangs in the cave mansion opened their eyes at the same time. A month passed so quickly. Jian Wushuang sighed lightly, but there was no regret on his face. Instead, his eyes were shining. After the 2 original bodies were united again, Jian Wushuang slowly walked out of the cave mansion. All the other geniuses also came out one by one. Seeing their expressions, Jian Wushuang knew that they all should have benefited a lot in this last month. Follow me. After saying this, the middle-aged man took them back to the drill ground where the firmament territory feast was held. The skyward pavilion was still quietly floating above the drill ground, and the sect experts were already back. They were talking casually. Now that a month has passed, I wonder how much progress these little guys have made. Who knows, but it should not be small. After all, they stayed at Enlightenment Mountain for the whole month, where they could meditate on the Tao twice as fast as in other places. Even an average genius can make some progress in a month, let alone these top geniuses who can make it to the 3rd round. Let's wait and see. Many of these little guys have deliberately hidden their strength during the first 2 rounds of the genius battle, but the 3rd round is different. These little guys will reveal their strength one by one, then we'll find out who is the strongest. The experts from the sects were all looking forward to what would happen. In the room where the ancient sect was, the eyes of the purple-hair man, Xian Yi, were focused on Jian Wushuang, Feng, and the other 4 people. But he was not concerned with the top geniuses from the eternal world. The 2 little guys, Jian Wushuang and Feng, have hidden themselves very well. Especially Jian Wushuang. He even caused my sword heart to become excited, which has never happened in the firmament territory. Even more of their strength will be revealed during round 3. I hope they'll give me a surprise. Xian Yi smiled. The middle-aged man presiding over the conference had already begun to announce the contents of the 3rd round on the drill ground. Round 3 consists of the arena battle. Chapter 635, Round 3, Arena Battle. Chapter 635, Round 3, Arena Battle. The Round 3 is an arena battle, said the middle-aged man. All the geniuses taking part in Round 3 will draw lots, one by one, to select their opponents. The winners can continue to battle and the losers will be eliminated. By the end of the round, only the strongest will remain. The top 10 geniuses will gain generous rewards for making it to the end of Round 3 in the genius battle. Only the top 10 geniuses will be rewarded with 100,000 divine gems. Second and third place will receive 500,000 divine gems. Whoever gets first place will be given 1 million divine gems and a Tao origin fruit. Hearing this, many geniuses became quite excited. Divine gems were the currency for trading in the eternal world. They were capable of restoring spiritual power. In the eternal world, an ordinary person in the divine realm would only possess several thousand divine gems. 100,000 divine gems was a great amount of wealth for these geniuses since it was already more than the assets of most divine realm experts. 1,000,000 divine gems was very close to the entire fortune of an eternal realm expert. As for the Tao origin fruit, it was one of the most valuable treasures for comprehending the Tao. So its value was even greater than 1,000,000 divine gems. No wonder these geniuses were so anxious to receive such a generous reward. However, Qian Wushuang had a strange look on his face. Doesn't the genius battle have 4 rounds? The geniuses will be ranked in Round 3, so what will we compete on in Round 4? Qian Wushuang had some doubts, but he didn't think about it anymore. Everyone quickly stepped forward to draw lots for the next round. Qian Wushuang also took a token. Qian Wushuang checked the token and found the number 28 on it. So Qian Wushuang's opponent was the person who had token number 27. Who will my first fight be against? Qian Wushuang thought, looking around and eventually locking on to a wicked man. The wicked man was also staring at Qian Wushuang. It's him. Qian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. Qian Wushuang knew of the wicked man called Chu Yang. He had witnessed Chu Yang's strength in Round 2. Chu Yang had a very good comprehension of the Earth Tao, only a step away from the first level. He had also created a Stage 1 superior secret skill. With regard to overall strength, he barely ranked in the middle of the remaining geniuses. I am lucky to be fighting with a genius from the ancient world in the first battle. Chu Yang sneered and walked towards Qian Wushuang, radiating a commanding atmosphere as he said, "Young man, I saw your performance in Round 2, but you are far weaker than me, so you'd better give up in the upcoming arena battle. Save both of our time." "I should give up." Qian Wushuang said with an interesting smile, "If you are strong enough, I'll give up." I did give you a chance, but you don't want it. Well, I'll make you regret your choice." Chu Yang snorted and then left. He really was looking down Qian Wushuang the whole time. It was normal. Qian Wushuang squeezed through Round 2 with a poor performance. Among the 124 geniuses, his strength was at the bottom. It was no wonder he was being looked down upon by the others. However, Qian Wushuang did not care. It wasn't long until Round 3, the arena battle, finally kicked off. The battleground was situated in a huge open space at the center of the drill ground and it was large enough for 2 geniuses to battle at will. The first fight of the arena battle started. The 2 first geniuses showed their strength completely. Because their strengths were somewhat equal to each other, the fight went on for quite a while before a victor was finally decided. The winner remained and continued to participate while the loser was eliminated. As time went by, everyone fought fiercely while trying to display their full power. Many of them had deliberately hidden their strength in the first 2 rounds, but none of them were holding back in Round 3. It was also true that they had all made progress in the last month because of their time at Enlightenment Mountain. These geniuses had made a lot of progress in that month. Boom! Suddenly a fierce roar emerged from the middle of the battlefield. Many geniuses from outside the arena and those sect experts in the Skyward Pavilion all cast their eyes on 2 specific figures in the arena. The 2 men were having a fierce fighting. One of them was named Jinyu, who many had high expectations of because he was strong enough to rank among the top 20 in this firmament territory feast. Before the drawing, many geniuses had prayed that Jin Yu would not be their opponent. But now, this genius was lying awkwardly on his stomach and coughing up blood while he struggled to stand up. But, in the end, he failed. Jin Yu was defeated. He had received a heavy blow. The genius fighting with Jin Yu was a purple-robed youth with a stone staff in his hand, a cold look on his handsome face, and a particularly strong aura. Just then, the purple-robed youth attacked 3 times in succession and defeated Jin Yu. Jin Yu didn't even get the chance to struggle because the gap between them was that big. This man. I remember him. His name is Gong Chao. All eyes were concentrated on the purple-robed youth. Gong Chao was from the Eternal World. In the first 2 rounds, his performance was only good enough to let him qualify, so very few people paid attention to him. But, at the beginning of round 3, he had instantly defeated Jin Yu, who was strong enough to rank in the top 20. His strength was instantly recognized. Top 3. His battle strength is within the top 3 at the very least. He is definitely as powerful as Qianqiu Wuhan. His comprehension of the Thunderbolt Dao is very good. With his strength, it is quite possible to strive for first place in this firmament territory feast, just like Qianqiu Wuhan. Another extreme genius has appeared. Quickly! Send him an invitation right now. The 3 magnates and the top sect experts all sent invitations to Gong Chao. Chapter 636, Jian Wushuang and Chu Yang. Chapter 636, Jian Wushuang and Chu Yang. At the drill ground, many geniuses stared at Gong Chao as he exited the battlefield. They all had serious looks on their faces. Gong Chao. Great. He's qualified to be my opponent, but I'm definitely stronger than him. Qianqiu Wuhan clutched his hands as battle intent raged in his eyes. Gong Chao. A slovenly girl in green from among the crowd glanced at Gong Chao, a sliver of light flashed in her eyes. He's quite strong. Feng stared at Gong Chao and pondered, I'll have to go all out if I battle him. He only needed 3 strikes to defeat Jin Yu. His strength is quite good. As Jian Wushuang peered at Gong Chao, his eyes sparkled with eagerness. The arena battle continued. Several geniuses competed against each other. One fierce fight after another. Chu Yang. Jian Wushuang. The middle-aged man shouted these 2 names. Immediately, the geniuses cast their eyes towards Jian Wushuang and Chu Yang. It's my turn. Jian Wushuang slowly raised his head. Jian Wushuang. Fight! Bing Shan and Xianing said. These 2 had just failed to defeat their opponents in the arena battle. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly, then stepped towards the battleground. Chu Yang also walked towards the battleground while many geniuses from the Eternal World looked at him enviously. Chu Yang is so lucky. He gets to fight with Jian Wushuang from the ancient world. Among the geniuses in round 3, Jian Wushuang is definitely at the lower end. Whoever fights with Jian Wushuang is guaranteed to win. Chu Yang is so lucky. There is no suspense in this fight. Those geniuses from the Eternal World all sighed with emotion. In the Skyward Pavilion, those sect experts were obviously not very interested in this fight. Since Jian Wushuang had a terrible performance in round 2, no one believed he could hold a candle against Chu Yang. Therefore, they all thought there would be no suspense in this fight. Only Xian Yi from the ancient sect had a glimmer of hope while waiting for the fight. That boy has hidden his strength for so long. Is it time for him to show his strength? Let me see a good show. On the battleground, Jian Wushuang and Chu Yang stood facing each other, hundreds of feet apart. Boy, remember what I told you? Chu Yang sneered and a bronze sledgehammer appeared in his hand as he continued saying, I told you that I would not give you the chance to surrender. Well, I'll be waiting, Jian Wushuang said while slightly smiling. This boy is pretty calm. He must be pretending. I bet he will be defeated by Chu Yang in 10 breaths or less. 10 breaths? Isn't that too short? After all, Jian Wushuang fought with the puppet fighter for 15 minutes when he passed round 2. The geniuses from the eternal world on the battleground were talking and laughing. At that time, Chu Yang grasped the bronze sledgehammer started to attack. Boom! With a harsh wind-breaking sound, Chu Yang turned into a phantom and instantly appeared near Jian Wushuang. As he swung the sledgehammer, a majestic earth Tao emerged. The sledgehammer immediately rocketed forward at a staggering speed. In the blink of an eye, the sledgehammer seemed transformed into a towering bronze mountain with immense power as it crashed down towards Jian Wushuang. Seeing the bronze mountain, everyone on the battleground shouted out in surprise. He's lifting that much weight so easily. How did Chu Yang achieve such a high level in comprehension of the Earth Tao? His understanding of the Earth Tao was not this high a month ago. It seems like he made great progress during the month he spent at Enlightenment Mountain. Jian Wushuang is unfortunate. Many geniuses sighed. Chu Yang, who was holding the bronze sledgehammer, had a treacherous smile on his face. Now do you see? Do you understand how much progress I made this month? Chu Yang said with pride. He really made a lot of progress last month, so he could not wait to show off his progress in hopes of attracting the attention of sect experts as soon as he had entered the arena battle. As for Jian Wushuang, Chu Yang only thought of him as a gauge he could use to show his strength. But, at this exact moment, Jian Wushuang slashed out with his sword. Buzzing! The moment he swung the sword, the surrounding area became dark. Only his sword shone brightly in the darkness. Superior Rank 1 Secret Skill, Cataclysm Skill. This skill seemed similar to a month ago, but it shined more brightly now. Its power increased several times over. The two attacks collided. Bang! After a thud, the stronger person was victorious. Puff! While coughing up a full mouth of blood, Chu Yang's expression froze and his pride instantly vanished. He stared at Jian Wushuang with a hint of shock. He was forced backwards several hundred meters by the tremendous impact. Outside the battleground, all the bantering eternal world geniuses were standing there motionless. They all had stunned expressions on their faces. They were completely astonished. They had thought that there would be no suspense in this fight. Yet, Chu Yang had been forced to cough up blood after only one exchange. He had been completely overpowered. They had assumed that Chu Yang would overpower Jian Wushuang, but the result was the exact opposite. How could it be possible? These words echoed in everyone's mind. In the Skyward Pavilion, those sex experts all looked at Jian Wushuang at the same time. They had seen the collision very clearly. Does he thoroughly understand the first level of the Slaughter Dao? It seems so. If not, his power would not be that strong. But, how could this be? A month ago, his understanding of the Slaughter Dao was just average. He still had a long way to go before he reached the first level. How could he grasp it in just a month? Not only that, he has made progress towards the second level. He improved so much in only a month. Those sect experts were shocked. During the 1 month at Enlightenment Mountain, those geniuses had all made some progress, but Jian Wushuang improved at such a fast speed? From almost comprehending the first occult to complete comprehension of it and even beginning to comprehend the second occult, it would take a normal genius at least a year or more. But Jian Wushuang only spent a month. Chapter 637, Ouyang Xian. Chapter 637, Ouyang Xian. At first, those sex experts thought that Jian Wushuang might have hidden his strength, but they quickly denied it. They had witnessed Jian Wushuang's performance in Round 1 and Round 2, so they were quite sure that Jian Wushuang had not hidden his strength. At least, not in his comprehension of the Slaughter Dao. After all, his understanding of the Slaughter Dao had been normal. The reason he made such incredible progress on the Slaughter Dao was completely due to the month he spent in cultivation at Enlightenment Mountain. He improved so quickly in only a month. Even those sex experts, who had experienced many ups and downs over the years, were shocked. On the battleground, Chu Yang was completely dazed because of the confrontation. Impossible! This is impossible! How could he make so much progress in only a month? Chu Yang kept roaring. Jian Wushuang was standing in front of him with the heart-killing sword in his hand and a cold look in his eyes as he said, "You just said that I won't even have a chance to surrender?" Chu Yang was stunned. Let's see who won't get the chance to surrender. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. Swoosh! 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 In an instant, a continuous flash of sword shadows flew towards Chu Yang. The progress made by these geniuses was not comparable to the progress that Jian Wushuang made in the month he spent meditating at Enlightenment Mountain. He became much stronger in just the Slaughter Dao. He had finished comprehending the first occult, even started meditating on the second occult. However, these improvements by Jian Wushuang also greatly affected different aspects of his swordsmanship. Because of his progress in the Slaughter Dao, Jian Wushuang was much stronger than a month ago. Chu Yang had no chance to win, so his only choice was to resign and accept his defeat at the hands of Jian Wushuang. This fight ended in Jian Wushuang's victory. Jian Wushuang noticed that everyone was looking at him differently when he exited the battleground. Those geniuses from the eternal world had looked down upon Jian Wushuang. After this fight, however, they would not underestimate him anymore. Jian Wushuang displayed an incredible strength that exceeded that of ordinary geniuses. What struck them the most, though, was the amazing speed at which he improved. He made such rapid progress in only a month, which was impossible for these geniuses to catch up to. As soon as Jian Wushuang returned to the crowd, he was surrounded by the geniuses from the ancient world. Jian Wushuang, congratulations! Feng looked over at Jian Wushuang and spoke in an icy voice. Jian Wushuang, you're amazing! Bing Shan, Xianing, and Wu Huang all sighed with emotion. Before that, they had thought that Jian Wushuang would be unable to win since his strength wasn't as good as theirs, but the result was far different from what they had imagined. Not bad. Hua Ying looked at Jian Wushuang. Hua Ying, this is just the first battle. It should be an easy win for you, Jian Wushuang replied. I hope so. Hua Ying smiled slightly. Among the 6 geniuses from the ancient world who made it to round 3, Feng was considered to be the strongest, with Hua Ying, who had comprehended the first occult, trailing right behind him. Hua Ying's first opponent was not any stronger than Chu Yang, so he should be easy to defeat if everything went well. As expected, Hua Ying easily defeated his opponent. Feng also defeated his opponent, who was a little stronger than Chu Yang but wasn't able to hold one any longer than him. The first round of the arena battle quickly ended. Among the 124 geniuses, 62 winners continued on, drawing lots once again to decide their next opponent. Jian Wushuang checked his token and saw that it had the number 1 on it. That meant Jian Wushuang would be the first one to fight. My opponent is him. Jian Wushuang instantly locked onto his target. It was a young well-groomed man with a folding fan in his hand. Jian Wushuang knew this guy. He was Ouyang Xian. Before the Firmament Territory feast had started, someone had attempted to kill Ouyang Xian in spite of the rules of the feast. However, that person had been easily defeated because his strength was not good enough. Everyone had witnessed how powerful Ouyang Xian was during that fight. Afterwards, Ouyang Xian easily passed round 1 and round 2, they easily beat his opponent in the first round of the arena battle. In this Firmament Territory feast, his overall strength was good enough for him to rank within the top 20. Jian Wushuang. Ouyang Xian. The middle-aged shouted loudly, then Jian Wushuang and Ouyang Xian instantly appeared on the battleground. Everyone looked at them as soon as they appeared. Even the sex experts in the Skyward Pavilion watched this with interest. Jian Wushuang made such great progress in only a month, even though he's from the ancient world, so he must be very talented. As for Ouyang Xian, he is a top genius with a strong spirit. Very few people noticed him even though he showed tremendous strength from the beginning. He is quite promising. Since Xian Yi has already claimed Jian Wushuang, we can try to rope in Ouyang Xian. Jian Wushuang is supposed to be as powerful as Ouyang Xian, but I wonder which one will triumph. Just wait. It's hard to tell who is stronger without a fierce fight. Until they saw Jian Wushuang and Chu Yang fight each other, those experts would not compare Jian Wushuang with Ouyang Xian. At this moment, they were not sure who would win in this fight since Jian Wushuang's strength seemed to be as powerful as Ouyang Xian's. In the ancient sex room, Xian Yi was staring at Jian Wushuang. He suddenly sighed and thought, what a pity. I thought Chu Yang would be able to force this little boy to show some of his trump cards. But, who would have thought that he could make so much progress in 1 month and beat Chu Yang with only the slaughter Dao? As of now, Xian Yi was once again filled with hope when he saw that Jian Wushuang would be battling Ouyang Xian. Chu Yang was not strong enough, but I believe that Ouyang Xian can force him to reveal some of his trump cards. Chapter 638, Lu Yun's 13 Sword Moves. Chapter 638, Lu Yun's 13 Sword Moves. On the battleground, two figures were staring at each other. Ouyang Xian. Jian Wushuang radiated killing intent, but his heart was quite calm. Violent but cold. This was what Jian Wushuang had cultivated while on the edge of life and death so many times in the ancient world. Ouyang Xian has comprehended the first occult of the Water Drop Dao and the Gale Dao. He should have made a lot of progress last month, so Chu Yang is far weaker than him, Jian Wushuang said to himself. Jian Wushuang, I saw your fight with Chu Yang. You're strong. Ouyang Xian said, I have fought with many people since the beginning of the Firmament Territory Feast, but none of them could force me to exert my full strength. I hope you can do it. Many geniuses could not help gasping in surprise. The strength Ouyang Xian had displayed was already shocking enough, but he had not gone all out ever since the beginning. Jian Wushuang still looked cold. Ouyang Xian had not done his best, but neither had Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, I know you are good at sword principle. So am I. Ouyang Xian smiled slightly. He withdrew the folding fan and placed it in his interspatial ring, then took out an aquamarine longsword. A soaring sword essence immediately radiated from Ouyang Xian. At the same time, a supreme sword essence exploded from Jian Wushuang. With the two essences colliding in the air, the whole area seemed to come to a standstill. This was a fight between two sword principle experts. When the two soaring sword essences collided, the two experts began to move as well. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two figures quickly rushed forward, leaving behind residual shadows. After that, two sword lights moved. Cataclysm skill. Jian Wushuang slashed out ferociously with the heart-killing sword. Sword C. Ouyang Xian stabbed forward with the sword. Swoosh! A vast ocean was swept toward Jian Wushuang. However, the collision did not create the violent explosion that everyone expected. Instead, the crowd only heard a squeezing sound. Jian Wushuang suddenly felt as if he was wrapped by an endless sea. Ouyang Xian could already use the Water Drop Dao to the limit of perfection. Roll! As Jian Wushuang surged forward, a killing intent exploded from his body and shot out like a barrage of sharp swords, striking the rolling sea. Sword lights flashed throughout the area. Jian Wushuang waved the heart-killing sword while displaying a murderous swordsmanship and a monstrous killing intent. However, Ouyang Xian's swordsmanship was quite flexible, sometimes quick and violent, sometimes soft and durable, just like the roaring sea. These two completely different types of swordsmanship violently clashed with each other. Dang! 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 The sound of deep crashes echoed. Even though Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship so powerful, he was still unable to break through the surging waves that surrounded him. As for Ouyang Xian, he had displayed a marvelous swordsmanship with a perfect application of the Water Drop and Gale Daos, but he failed to overwhelm the heart-killing sword. Ouyang Xian, is this your full strength? Jian Wushuang sighed and then struck out with the heart-killing sword. A soaring killing intent burst from the sword blade, releasing an overwhelming amount of sword shadows that surged towards Ouyang Xian, colliding with the long sword in his hands. Dark cyan waves appeared in front of Ouyang Xian and withstood the monstrous sword shadows. Very good. Ouyang Xian looked at Jian Wushuang with a glow of excitement in his eyes and said, "You're the first person here to make me go all out." After saying that, Ouyang Xian placed the aquamarine longsword back in his interspatial ring and exchanged it for a huge heavy sword. A heavy sword? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Everyone outside the battleground was very shocked. Ouyang Xian had revealed his heavy sword. "Jian Wushuang, take this attack." Ouyang Xian growled before suddenly appearing in front of Jian Wushuang, swinging the huge heavy sword in a chopping motion towards Jian Wushuang. Swoosh! The sword essence was like an endless torrent of water, inundating Jian Wushuang. This is... Many experts in the Skyward Pavilion were surprised when they saw the sword skill that was being displayed by Ouyang Xian. It's the 13 sword moves of Lu Yun. It is a unique skill for the Water Drop Dao. It was created by Lu Yun, who is in the Eternal Realm. How did this boy learn it? The 13 sword moves of Lu Yun is quite valuable. How could someone like Ouyang Xian, who is only in the skyscraping realm, get his hands on it? In the 13 sword moves of Lu Yun, each successive move is more powerful than the previous one. I wonder how many moves he is capable of displaying with his current comprehension of the Water Drop Dao. Under the watchful eyes of those experts, Ouyang Xian executed the first move. Jian Wushuang fended it off with all his strength, forcing both of them to take a step back. However, Ouyang Xian didn't stop and went on to display the second move, which was more powerful than the first one. Jian Wushuang was forced to retreat by this move. Without waiting, Ouyang Xian executed the third move. As the heavy sword swung out, its power instantly skyrocketed. He can display the third move. Since the 13 sword moves of Lu Yun were not created by him, it is very remarkable for Ouyang Xian to be able to display the third move while only in the skyscraping realm. With this move, Ouyang Xian can definitely rank in the top 20. Jian Wushuang is going to be defeated. On the battleground, pang! With a loud boom, everyone witnessed Jian Wushuang being knocked to the ground so forcefully that a hole was left at the point of impact. Everyone believed that Jian Wushuang had been defeated. Bang! At this point, the hole suddenly exploded and a figure rushed out into the air. Naturally, it was Jian Wushuang. He didn't look injured in the least and he even looked excited. Ouyang Xian looked at Jian Wushuang with a frown while still holding the heavy sword. Jian Wushuang had not been injured by that powerful move. Ouyang Xian. You are also the first one here to force me to go all out. Jian Wushuang said in a loud voice as a burning desire flashed in his eyes. He finally decided to use his full power. Xian Yi in the Skyward Pavilion narrowed his eyes. A moment later, Jian Wushuang slashed out with his sword. In that instant, an intense world energy surged forward. Chapter 639, Erupt, World Dao. Chapter 639, Erupt, World Dao. All the spectators who had witnessed Ouyang Xian display the third movement of the 13 sword moves of Lu Yun thought that Jian Wushuang was doomed to lose the fight. However, things went against their expectations. Jian Wushuang was not injured under that attack. He brandished his long sword, which startled all the spectators. That is World Dao, it's the World Dao. And he has a high understanding of it. They saw the strike, which seemed to contain a huge world, charging toward Ouyang Xian. This was a superior rank 1 secret skill, named Stars. It was much mightier than the Cataclysm skill, as Jian Wushuang had a better comprehension of the World Dao than the Slaughter Dao. Humph! Ouyang Xian snorted, without a hint of fear in his eyes. He wielded his huge, heavy sword and attacked again. He displayed the same move. Bang! The two strikes violently crashed together, causing a terrifying boom. World Prison! Jian Wushuang growled as he waved his hands. A mighty world energy gushed out from his palms, forming a colossal world prison around his opponent. This world prison was equivalent to the one that Emperor Shao had used to train him, but it was weaker. After the world prison covered Ouyang Xian, Jian Wushuang immediately launched continuous attacks. Swoosh! 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 The sword shadows had completely shown the power of the World Dao and Slaughter Dao that he had comprehended. Numerous giant hands appeared in the world prison and began hitting Ouyang Xian crazily. What? Ouyang Xian turned pale. He was locked in the world prison while being attacked by the World Dao and Slaughter Dao. The only thing he could do was to try his best to resist. The spectators in the skyward pavilion were rocked. He must have comprehended the first occult of the World Dao and has almost mastered the second occult, otherwise he would not have been able to control such a huge world prison. He is amazing. He didn't reveal that he had mastered the World Dao during the previous genius battles. We all thought he had a high comprehension of the Slaughter Dao, but didn't expect that his perception of the World Dao was so wonderful. He's already qualified to rank in the top 20 just by using his Slaughter Dao in this feast. Now seeing that his comprehension of the World Dao is superior to that of his Slaughter Dao, this strength. Top 10. He definitely has top 10 battle strength. Or even top 5. He has an excellent understanding of the Slaughter Dao and World Dao, and he is adept at the sword principle. Having such strength, he's certainly able to enter the top 5. Most importantly, this boy actually comes from the ancient world. Upon hearing this, many experts quieted down. The Firmament Territory Feast was held every 3,000 years. In its history, those who ranked in the top 20 were almost always the local geniuses from the eternal world. As for the geniuses from the ancient world, it was rare for them to enter the top 20, let alone rank in the top 10. Among previous feasts, only one genius from the ancient world had reached the top 10. However, they now thought that Jian Wushuang was qualified to be ranked 5th or higher. The geniuses in this year's feast were much more powerful than before, so those who were capable of entering the top 5 would have been ranked in the top 3, or even first, in the previous feasts. World Dao. Seeing what was happening, Xian Yi slightly furrowed his eyebrows. This boy is still holding back some tactics. The experts from the other sects believed that Jian Wushuang was using his full strength, which was contrary to Xian Yi's thoughts. His sword principle attracts the attention of my sword heart. It's extraordinary, but he hasn't fully displayed it, Xian Yi thought. He had expected Jian Wushuang to display all his skills. He originally thought it was time for Jian Wushuang to perform the sword principle during the fight with Ouyang Xian. But actually, Jian Wushuang only used the World Dao. On the battlefield, Jian Wushuang was fiercely fighting with Ouyang Xian in the world prison. It's impossible. How is this possible? Ouyang Xian was shocked and exhausted. He had tried his best to resist, but he remained at a disadvantage and had no chance to fight back. He has a high comprehension of the World Dao. How is this possible? Ouyang Xian wondered. He did not know that Jian Wushuang had comprehended the first occult of the World Dao, or that he had made great progress in the Slaughter Dao as well as his World Dao during his 1-month cultivation on Enlightenment Mountain. His perception of the World Dao had reached a new level. Now he had an in-depth study of the second occult, so his strength improved greatly. How could Ouyang Xian withstand his attack if he exerted his full strength of the World Dao and Slaughter Dao? After a while, Ouyang Xian was finally beaten down by Jian Wushuang. When Jian Wushuang slowly walked off of the battlefield, he found all the spectators' eyes fixed on him. They looked grim and a bit frightened. Now, all of them were in awe of Jian Wushuang because of his mighty strength. Chapter 640, The Top 20 Geniuses. Chapter 640, The Top 20 Geniuses. This boy is so powerful. He has an excellent understanding of the Slaughter Dao and World Dao. If he combines them perfectly, I'll be no match for him. He is too powerful. Only Qianqiu Wuhan and Gong Chao can fight against him. Everyone fixed their attention on Jian Wushuang. No one dared to hold him in contempt now, even though they knew he came from the ancient world. He had gained their respect through his strength. After he returned to the drill ground, Feng gazed at Jian Wushuang with an odd expression, saying, "Jian Wushuang, you've hidden your strength well. The same as you." Jian Wushuang smiled faintly as he threw Feng a meaningful glance. He had recognized that Feng had also hidden his strength in the first round of the genius battle. Although he was considered powerful enough to enter the top 20, Feng had not exposed his true strength. "I'm looking forward to having a head-on fight with you in the arena duels," Feng said. "Me too. But we can't decide the grouping of the arena duels," Jian Wushuang responded. "Then let's fight after the Firmament Territory Feast is over," Feng suggested. "Okay." Jian Wushuang nodded with a smile. The arena duels went on. Soon after, Feng took the field. Feng's opponent was also a superior genius who was qualified to get into the top 20. He seemed to be as strong as Feng. Everyone thought it would have to be a fierce fight, but in the end, Feng defeated his opponent with ease. Saber technique. Jian Wushuang, who had kept an eye on this fight, nodded inwardly. The saber technique that Feng displayed was terrifying. Although he had only used the superior rank 1 secret skill, his saber technique was more exquisite than his opponent's, so he had gained the upper hand from the beginning. Obviously, the spectators had underestimated Feng's strength. Hua Ying, from the ancient world, was out of luck. He encountered an opponent who was able to rank inside the top 10, so naturally, Hua Ying lost the fight. After 2 rounds of duels, aside from Jian Wushuang and Feng, the other 4 geniuses from the ancient world were knocked out. The results came in. The 31 geniuses made it through to the next round. However, they could not match up in pairs, so the middle-aged host ordered them to assemble at the center of the drill ground. "Listen up. Next, I'll use a special method to choose the 20 geniuses who can continue the arena duels," the middle-aged man said in a resonant voice. "A special method?" The 31 geniuses were all curious. "Are you ready?" The middle-aged man's face fell as a terrifying aura suddenly radiated out from his body and surged toward the 31 geniuses. Although those geniuses had been prepared for it, the mighty aura still forced 2 of them to kneel down. The other geniuses, whose faces had turned red, were trying their best to withstand it. Aura oppression. Jian Wushuang calmly stood with his arms folded. Feng standing beside him wore a solemn expression. Obviously, this stream of aura oppression did not work on him. The experts in the Skyward Pavilion watched this with interest. They already knew that there would be a test of aura oppression and that it emphasized one's temperament. The more persistent a genius was, the more easily he could withstand the aura oppression. "As I expected, it's easy for those 2 boys." Xian Yi smiled faintly. The aura suppression became stronger and stronger. Some geniuses reached their limits. Even Qianqiu Wuhan and Gong Chao looked pale. But Jian Wushuang and Feng remained composed, as if the aura suppression had not landed on them. Both of them had experienced life and death trials and struggled on in the ancient world, so they were able to simply stand there. They already had hearts of stone. The geniuses from the eternal world had superior cultivating conditions. But even though they were talented, most of them had not suffered a lot, so their willpower was weak. Bang! 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 Geniuses fell down one by one. Aside from Jian Wushuang and Feng, the other geniuses were still struggling to keep their balance. When the 11th genius fell down, the aura oppression eventually dissipated. They all felt relieved. The top 20 geniuses are qualified to compete for the top 10. "The rest of you are out," the middle-aged man shouted in a frosty tone. Upon hearing this, the 11 geniuses who had been forced to fall were not willing to leave, but they had no choice. The top 20 geniuses went to draw lots to determine their opponents. The groupings for the 3rd round of the arena duels were quickly settled. Zhong Hua vs Qiu Yu. Li Xiaoye vs Huan Chong. Feng Tianyi vs Wing King. Feng vs Qianqiu Wuhan. Jian Wushuang vs. Gong Chao. Chapter 641, Feng and Qianxiu Wuhan. Chapter 641, Feng and Qianxiu Wuhan. The list of names for the third round of the arena duels instantly caused a commotion on the drill ground. Some geniuses gave sympathetic glances at Jian Wushuang and Feng, while others were gloating about it. "We've had a bit of bad luck." Jian Wushuang and Feng looked at each other and then sighed with complicated expressions. Most of the geniuses had already used their strength in the Firmament Territory feast by this point. Qianxiu Wuhan and Gong Chao were considered the most powerful. Both of them were far superior to the other geniuses. If they had attended the previous Firmament Territory feasts, either of them would have ranked number 1. When drawing lots just now, everyone had been praying that they would not encounter those two geniuses. And the results were Gong Chao vs. Jian Wushuang. Qianxiu Wuhan vs. Feng. Jian Wushuang and Feng would have to fight against the two strongest geniuses. They were the last survivors among the thousands of warriors from the ancient world in this feast, but they would have to deal with the most powerful opponents in the third round of the arena duels. It was not their day. If they had not drawn the lots themselves, they would have suspected that the middle-aged man had intended to set them up. The experts in the Skyward Pavilion were in a heated discussion. Bad luck for the two boys from the ancient world. They already had the chance to hit the top 10 and win the prizes, but now they have to fight Gong Chao and Qianxiu Wuhan. The two strongest geniuses from the ancient world versus the most powerful ones from the eternal world. How interesting. The two boys look good, especially Jian Wushuang. He's able to hit the top 5. It's a pity that he has to deal with Gong Chao, who seems to be as strong as Qianxiu Wuhan but has been hiding his strength. That is to say, Gong Chao is actually stronger than Qianxiu Wuhan, so Jian Wushuang will have no opportunity to win this time. What a pity. All the experts sighed because Jian Wushuang and Feng would lose their fights. The two boys were powerful indeed, but they were far inferior to Qianxiu Wuhan and Gong Chao in the experts' eyes. Even Xian Yi held the same view. Qianxiu Wuhan and Gong Chao are talented. Although Feng has hidden some of his strength, he's still weaker than the two geniuses. As for Jian Wushuang, Xian Yi thought while shooting the young boy a meaningful glance, he has hidden many skills. If he fought against Qianxiu Wuhan, he would still have a glimmer of hope to win the fight, but he's encountered Gong Chao. Xian Yi shook his head. He had recognized Gong Chao's real strength just as the other experts had. Gong Chao was much more powerful than Qianxiu Wuhan. It's impossible to defeat Gong Chao. Now we'll see how far the boy can go, Xian Yi thought with an indifferent expression on his face. On the battlefield, the first fight had already started. Zhong Hua was fighting Qiu Yu. Because these geniuses had entered the top 20, the disparity between their strength was very slight. Zhong Hua and Qiu Yu were evenly matched, so their fierce fight lasted a long time. The other geniuses were waiting for their turn by the drill ground. 15 minutes passed. Qiu Yu finally won this fight with a little advantage. The second duel, Li Xiaoye vs. Huan Chong. The fierce fights continued. Not long after, it was time for Feng to fight against Qianxiu Wuhan. "Good luck, Feng," said Jian Wushuang, shooting a quick glance at him. "Okay." Feng nodded, then slowly stepped forward. Many geniuses on the drill ground and experts in the Skyward Pavilion fixed their eyes on this fight. Naturally, Qianxiu Wuhan was in the spotlight. The moment the middle-aged man gave the order, the two duelers instantly grappled with each other. Boom! 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 As a deafening roar reverberated through the area, Feng did not hold back and his strength erupted. The brilliant streaks of saber shadows swept out, which attracted everyone's attention. His saber technique was extremely mighty, as if it were able to destroy the entire world. What a terrifying saber technique! He's too strong. He has a high comprehension of the destruction Tao. He's amazing. His strength shocked everyone. They finally realized that Feng had been hiding his strength. Top 5. He has top 5 battle strength. He is not weaker than Jian Wushuang. 2 geniuses from the ancient world have top 5 battle strength? All the experts were quite shocked. Feng's strength was beyond their expectations, but he was still unable to match Qianqiu Wuhan. At this point, Qianqiu Wuhan gave a casual slap, which moved toward his opponent like a huge fire mountain. He continued his attacks, unleashing more overwhelming fire mountains. Feng tried his best to resist, splitting the fire mountains in half or repelling them, but the fire mountains surged at him without pause. Feng felt that it was becoming more and more strenuous for him to sustain, while Qianqiu Wuhan was still attacking with a calm expression. Go to hell. Qianqiu Wuhan finally found a chance to show his trump cards. Instantly, the entire surrounding area fell into an endless sea of fire with the arrival of several of his palms. Feng wielded his saber to parry them, but he only deflected 3 of them while 2 palms landed on his body. Qianqiu Wuhan won. Chapter 642, The Strongest Genius, Gong Chao. Chapter 642, The Strongest Genius, Gong Chao. He lost. Seeing Feng being carried out of the battlefield, Jian Wushuang sighed while shaking his head. Feng had exerted his full strength. He was powerful indeed, especially using his saber technique. However, his comprehension of the Tao was inferior to Qianqiu Wuhan's, so he was unable to turn the tables. Then it was time for Jian Wushuang to fight Gong Chao. Under the gazes of the geniuses on the drill ground and the experts in the skyward pavilion, Jian Wushuang and Gong Chao stepped onto the battlefield. Jian Wushuang had to be considered the best genius from the ancient world. Gong Chao was qualified to rank number 1 in the other geniuses' eyes, but the experts knew that he was actually much more powerful than Qianqiu Wuhan and would be the strongest genius in this year's Firmament Territory Feast. Therefore, their duel received lots of attention. The battle between Jian Wushuang and Gong Chao will be exciting. Both of them are the best geniuses from their respective worlds. It's rare to see such a fight. Anyway, Gong Chao will be the winner. I only wonder how far Jian Wushuang will go. Right, Gong Chao is far superior to the other geniuses. Even Qianqiu Wuhan is weaker than him. No one is his match in this year's feast. Although Jian Wushuang is good, he is unable to fight against Gong Chao. I don't think so. An elegant, middle-aged expert from a superior sect disagreed. Jian Wushuang has been hiding his strength and has various skills. In the second of the genius battles, he almost lost the fight against the puppet fighter, but he still held on for 10 minutes by using his sword principle. As for the arena duel with Chu Yang, all of us thought he would lose without a doubt, but in the end, he defeated Chu Yang with ease. And during his fight with Ouyang Xian, we thought he would be defeated by the 13 sword moves of Lu Yun, but he used his world Tao to save the day. Every time, his performance has been beyond our expectations, so we have to change our view of him. Even I can't see through him. If the other geniuses went up against Gong Chao, I believe that Gong Chao would win. But now, it's Jian Wushuang. I don't dare to draw a conclusion. Upon hearing this, many experts secretly nodded. The middle-aged expert was telling the truth. Jian Wushuang had surprised them 3 times, so he might create a miracle this time. Jian Wushuang is just a little guy from the ancient world. It's a miracle that he has been able to reach this level. He wants to defeat Gong Chao. Ridiculous, said the black-haired elder from Cloud Sea Asgard with disdain. He fixed his eyes on Gong Chao, as he believed that Gong Chao was the number 1 genius in this year's Firmament Territory Feast. Jian Wushuang. How was he comparable to Gong Chao? At this point, Jian Wushuang and Gong Chao stood face to face. Gong Chao. Jian Wushuang stared at his opponent as his battle intent rose, and he said, "You're more powerful than any of us in the feast, and I know that you haven't used your full strength yet. I really want to see how powerful you are." "That depends on how strong you are." I won't use my full strength to attack someone who is weak, Gong Chao responded in a frosty tone. Give it a try. Jian Wushuang stuck out his tongue to lick his lips. His battle intent had peaked while his eyes sparkled with eagerness. It had been a long time since he had encountered a super genius like Gong Chao. Therefore, he was looking forward to it. Your strength is greater than my previous opponent's, so I'll take it seriously, Gong Chao said as he gave him an icy stare. A stone cudgel appeared in his hands. It looked worn out, but a terrifying aura radiated out from it. Gong Chao had used it to defeat his opponents during the previous rounds of genius battles. No one had been able to withstand 3 strikes from him. Show your move, Jian Wushuang replied in a confident tone. His heart-killing sword appeared in his hand. It seemed to be perceiving the overwhelming battle intent from his body and it started to shake violently. Okay. Gong Chao suddenly stepped forward. Bang! The tough ground immediately cracked. Many geniuses were unable to break the ground even if they used all of their strength, but Gong Chao did it easily. His terrifying aura reached its peak. Then, Gong Chao waved his stone cudgel toward his opponent, who was still standing far away from him. The moment the cudgel lashed out, it began to expand at an amazing speed and became a sky-supporting pillar that connected heaven and earth. Endless thunderbolts curled around the pillar with the power of destroying the whole world. Holding his stone cudgel, Gong Chao now became the ruler of the thunderbolts. How powerful! This strike! Rank 2. Rank 2 secret skill. Many geniuses on the drill ground and experts in the Skyward Pavilion were stupefied. Seeing the terrifying power, everyone realized that this attack belonged to the Rank 2 secret skill. It was the first time that a Rank 2 secret skill had appeared during this year's Firmament Territory feast. At this point, Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up. And the next moment, his world energy suddenly emanated out as the power of the heart-killing sword soared. Boom! A strike charged forward, as if it would split the whole area. This powerful strike drew the attention of all the spectators. This strike! Everyone widened their eyes because they discovered that Jian Wushuang was displaying a Rank 2 secret skill. It was a competition between Rank 2 secret skills, Peerless Staff Technique versus Terrifying Swordsmanship. The 2 strikes crashed head-on under everyone's gaze. Chapter 643, Jian Wushuang vs. Gong Chao. Chapter 643, Jian Wushuang vs. Gong Chao. Boom! The sound of the initial confrontation was loud enough to shake the entire area. The whole battlefield was a surging storm of power. All the spectators were shocked. After all, there was a wide gap between Rank 1 secret skills and Rank 2 secret skills. Many geniuses were able to invent superior Rank 1 secret skills. Each of the geniuses who made it through to the 3rd round of the arena duels had created their own superior Rank 1 secret skills, but the power of their skills was different and no one had displayed a Rank 2 secret skill because it was much harder to create Rank 2 secret skills. A genius, who wanted to create a Rank 2 secret skill, should have a high understanding of the Tao, especially the weapon Tao. For example, a genius might be able to invent a Rank 2 secret skill, if he was adept at spear techniques and had done an in-depth study of the spear principle. Few geniuses in this feast could meet these requirements. However, Gong Chao was talented and regarded as the strongest genius in this year's feast. Even the 3 magnates thought highly of him, so it was not a surprise that he was able to invent a Rank 2 secret skill. But, Jian Wushuang. He came from the ancient world. A genius from the ancient world was actually displaying a Rank 2 secret skill to fight against Gong Chao. Buzz! The endless energy storm filled the entire battlefield. After a while, 2 figures retreated from the energy storm while trying to regain their balance. Jian Wushuang gripped his sword with soaring battle intents in his eyes, while Gong Chao narrowed his eyes with a more solemn expression. They were at their peak. Obviously, they fought to a draw in the initial confrontation. Good, do it again. Gong Chao threw an icy stare at his opponent, Then he charged forward with his stone cudgel. "Come on!" Jian Wushuang growled. His sword soul started shaking violently in his sea of consciousness, producing a mighty sword soul power. As he moved, his body seemed to change into a sharp sword. Swoosh! A terrifying sword essence pervaded the entire battlefield. Humph! Gong Chao snorted. He launched continuous attacks with his stone cudgel. Each of the strikes radiated a mighty power that was strong enough to smash an ordinary skyscraping realm expert into pieces. These two duelers continued to grapple with each other as the fight reached the white-hot stage. The sounds from their confrontations struck terror into the spectators' hearts. Too powerful, they are too strong. What a terrifying strength. Both of them can easily kill me. Gong Chao had a high understanding of the Thunderbolt Dao, far superior to us. Even Qianqiu Wuhan can't hold a candle to him in the enlightenment of the Dao. Jian Wushuang's sword principle is amazing. He might be the best among us in the enlightenment of sword principle. Many geniuses could not help but shout their praises. The experts in the Skyward Pavilion were astonished by Jian Wushuang's performance. Jian Wushuang's sword principle is great. It's unsurprising that Gong Chao had such a strength, but Jian Wushuang, we only knew that he was proficient in sword principle, so we didn't expect him to be so powerful. None of the other geniuses are able to match him in sword principle. His sword soul power is too strong. Even Gong Chao's staff soul is weaker than his. He surprised us once again. The knowledgeable experts marveled at Jian Wushuang's strength. Jian Wushuang was inferior to his opponent in the enlightenment of the Dao, but he narrowed the strength gap by using his sword principle. Sword principle, Xian Yi thought as he stared at Jian Wushuang with a flicker of excitement in his eyes. He also wondered. His sword principle cultivation is amazing. It's unbelievable that a skyscraping realm expert has such a powerful sword soul power, but, is this his limit? All the experts in Skyward Pavilion felt how powerful his sword soul was and knew this sword soul power was far superior to the other geniuses. Nevertheless, Xian Yi suspected that Jian Wushuang had not reached his limit. On the battlefield, the fierce battle still continued. I've already displayed my strongest move and used 70% of my sword soul power, but I'm unable to gain the upper hand. Jian Wushuang wore a solemn expression as his opponent continued to pressure him. His strongest move was the rank 2 secret skill he had just performed, Sword Heart World. He had invented it after the 1-month meditation in Enlightenment Mountain. It was a mighty move. Furthermore, he had the strongest sword soul and 70% of his sword soul power was far superior to the other geniuses. Even Gong Chao's staff soul was weaker than his. However, he was still neck and neck with his opponent. Gong Chao's Thunderbolt Dao was powerful indeed. Boom! Gong Chao brandished his stone cudgel, causing endless thunderbolts to surge out as if a thunderbolt dragon was charging toward Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang stabbed forward with his heart-killing sword and unleashed an overwhelming sword soul power which split the head of the dragon. Jian Wushuang. Gong Chao spoke. You're really strong. It seems that I have to use some of my trump cards if I want to defeat you. Chapter 644, Yinyang Dao. Chapter 644, Yinyang Dao. Trump cards. Jian Wushuang's face fell. However, all the spectators were tingling with excitement. Gong Chao still had trump cards left. Try this move. Gong Chao stepped forward as he violently attacked his opponent with the stone cudgel. It moved slowly. Jian Wushuang frowned and subconsciously waved his sword to resist it, but when his sword crashed into the cudgel, he immediately felt a strange power which seemed gentle but was actually powerful enough to suppress his sword. What? Jian Wushuang was shocked. Gong Chao attacked again. The strike seemingly lashed out with mighty strength, but it became gentle in a head-on collision. Bang! 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 Gong Chao struck blows in succession. However, his staff technique was variable. Sometimes it became powerful, but sometimes it was as gentle as water. It was so exquisite that Jian Wushuang could not find a chance to fight back. This marvelous skill confused him. He was at a distinct disadvantage now. Upon seeing this, the experts in the Skyward Pavilion were astonished. That is Yinyang Dao. Right, it's the Yinyang Dao. Strong and weak, quick and slow. It really is the Yinyang Dao. Looking at this staff technique, he has a high understanding of the Yinyang Dao. Although his Yinyang Dao is inferior to his Thunderbolt Dao, he has comprehended its first occult. Gong Chao has actually comprehended the Yinyang Dao. It's the hardest one among the various Daos. Most importantly, the combination of Yin and Yang requires excellent coordination. He is able to display his staff technique while giving full play to his Thunderbolt Dao, which means his battle strength has reached a new level. There were hundreds of types of Daos. Yet, the Yinyang Dao was the most difficult and exquisite one among them. Gong Chao switched smoothly between the Yinyang Dao and the Thunderbolt Dao as he launched continuous attacks, which placed even more pressure on his opponent. Amazing! He is adept at two kinds of Dao. Jian Wushuang frowned, with a flicker of killing intent in his eyes. You've comprehended two separate Daos, but so have I. You're good at switching between the two Daos. On this point, I can't match you, but what about two of me? Jian Wushuang snarled in his heart. The next moment, his body flashed. Swoosh! A figure appeared by his side. This figure wore a black robe and held a long sword while radiating a mighty killing intent. He also looked the same as Jian Wushuang. What? Seeing another Jian Wushuang, Gong Chao was stunned. It also startled the other geniuses. Two Jian Wushuangs. One becomes two. What's that? All the geniuses were stupefied. One of the Jian Wushuangs emanated killing intent while the other's aura seemed to encompass the whole world. They were his world body and slaughter body. His world body, which was full of world energy, held the heart-killing sword. His slaughter body held the triple kill sword while releasing an overwhelming killing intent. Kill! Kill! The world body and slaughter body shouted at the exact same time as they charged toward their opponent. World prison! Jian Wushuang's world body waved his hand and a huge world prison appeared. Cataclysm skill. The slaughter body wielded the triple kill sword while converging his soaring killing intent into a single point. If the two bodies merged into one, he was able to use both of the Daos but unable to switch as smoothly as Gong Chao. However, now they were two independent bodies, so they could fully release the power of the two Daos. Emperor Shao told me not to show my flawless foundation and strongest sword soul, but he didn't mention my two original bodies, Jian Wushuang thought. The moment his two bodies attacked, the experts in the Skyward Pavilion stood up in shock. Doppelganger? Doppelganger's secret skill. Wow, the boy from the ancient world has actually mastered the Doppelganger secret skill. A skyscraping realm boy is displaying the Doppelganger secret skill. Unbelievable. The experts were shocked. The three experts representing the three magnates were unable to believe what they were witnessing. The Doppelganger's secret skill? Even I haven't mastered it, the black-haired elder from Cloud Sea Asgard sighed. What a precious skill. It's fabulous, even in our eternal world. Aside from the three magnates and the ancient sect, the other 8 top sects in the firmament territory don't possess the Doppelganger's secret skill, but a boy from the ancient world has obtained it? The arrogant middle-aged man from the immortal dynasty was also surprised. The Doppelganger's secret skill was valuable enough to arouse the attention of the three magnates as well as the other top sections. It had a high cultivation requirement and a lot of limits. Even the Eternal Realm experts like the three experts from the three magnates were unable to create a doppelganger. There was only one expert here who had a doppelganger, and that was Xian Yi. They did not know that Jian Wushuang had not practiced the doppelganger secret skill as they thought. He had been practicing a heaven-defying cultivation method which was greater than the doppelganger secret skill, the heavenly creation skill. This skill provided him with a flawless foundation as well as the two original bodies. His two bodies were totally different from doppelgangers. Chapter 645, 2 verses 1. Chapter 645, 2 verses 1. Speaking of the doppelganger's secret skill, if the original body died, the doppelganger would cease to exist, but Jian Wushuang's original bodies were different. If an original body was killed, the other original body would be able to remake it. The two bodies had their own thoughts, so they were able to cultivate, kill, or scramble for treasures separately. It was more powerful than the doppelganger's secret skill. Jian Wushuang is superior to the ordinary geniuses from the ancient world. He's not only good at sword principle, but he has also mastered the doppelganger's secret skill. If I'm right, he must have received some amazing opportunities which a supreme expert from our eternal world left, the evil girl from the Boundless Demons sect said. That's possible. The other experts in the Skyward Pavilion nodded in agreement. Experts from the eternal world preferred to leave their legacy in the other plane worlds. Without superb opportunities, it was impossible for Jian Wushuang, a skyscraping realm expert, to have such a high level of strength and even mastered the doppelganger's secret skill while in the ancient world, even though he was talented. It's a pity that I already promised Xian Yi that I wouldn't pursue the 6 geniuses from the ancient world, or else. I'd like to invite the boy to be our inner disciple, the evil girl sighed. What a pity. The arrogant middle-aged man from the immortal dynasty nodded inwardly. However, the black-haired elder from Cloud Sea Asgard still disagreed. The boy is talented and might have gained a wonderful opportunity, but he still comes from the ancient world where people don't know how to cultivate their foundation properly. As we all know, the foundation can affect one's potential. His foundation is weak, so he won't have great achievements. Xian Yi ignored the other experts' discussion and fixed his eyes on Jian Wushuang. Doppelganger's secret skill? Nice! Xian Yi thought with a flicker of delight in his eyes. Boy, you've given me even more surprises. The horrible booms echoed through the area. Gong Chao had to fight with Jian Wushuang's two bodies. Although he had a high understanding of the Thunderbolt Dao and had mastered the Yin-Yang Dao, it was slowly exhausting him. A hint of killing intent flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes. The sword soul suddenly shook in his sea of consciousness. Then, his sword soul power increased to 80%. 80% of my sword soul power, I can't use more or my strongest sword soul will be exposed, Jian Wushuang thought. As the two original bodies exerted 80% of his sword soul power, the power of his swordsmanship greatly improved. The boy, his sword soul power has increased again. How many trump cards has he been hiding? A skyscraping realm expert can possess such a mighty sword soul power? The experts in the Skyward Pavilion all marveled at his strength. As I expected, Xian Yi was not surprised, but he still had some doubts. Has he reached his limit? The drill ground went dead silent as the other geniuses all watched them in shock. Jian Wushuang obviously became stronger just now. Streaks of sword shadows crazily suppressed Gong Chao, who was consistently losing ground. Gong Chao has been completely suppressed. Gong Chao is at a disadvantage, even though he used his Yin-Yang Dao. Jian Wushuang is indeed powerful. His strength shook everyone. Even Qianqiu Wuhan stared at the two duelers with a frown. These two are really powerful, but I'll still rank first in this year's feast, Qianqiu Wuhan thought with a flicker of madness in his eyes. A scruffy green-clothed girl watched the fight with a solemn expression. I can't match either of them. They're too strong. Boom! A loud sound was heard from the battlefield before Jian Wushuang and Gong Chao separated. The two original bodies stood in the void with a soaring aura while Gong Chao looked embarrassed. Jian Wushuang. Gong Chao held his stone cudgel more tightly as he stared at Jian Wushuang with a gush of killing intent in his eyes. I didn't expect someone would push me to such an extent in this feast. Especially a genius from the ancient world. You are powerful. If I encountered you 1 month ago, I would have been defeated by you, but over the last month, I've made great progress in Enlightenment Mountain, so you will lose this fight. Gong Chao's confident voice reverberated through the drill ground. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes slightly. All eyes were on Gong Chao. Everyone wondered whether Gong Chao still had other trump cards at this critical moment. Gong Chao charged forward again. Shwa! A streak of thunderbolt flashed across the sky and Gong Chao appeared in front of the slaughter body in the blink of an eye. So fast! Jian Wushuang was surprised. Although Gong Chao's offensive speed had been terrifying, Jian Wushuang had been able to handle it. But now his speed doubled, which chilled Jian Wushuang's blood. Gong Chao brandished his stone cudgel. The strike with terrifying thunderbolt power moved at an unbelievable speed, which placed unprecedented pressure on the slaughter body. Jian Wushuang paled. He was unable to parry it and could barely resist it with his triple kill sword. As a result, pang! The mighty power knocked away the triple kill sword and forced the slaughter body to retreat. Whoosh! The wind-breaking sound was heard before the world body suddenly appeared behind Gong Chao. Chapter 646, Victory. Chapter 646, Victory. While the slaughter body was under the attack, the world body took the chance to sneakily attack Gong Chao's head with the long sword. However, Gong Chao brandished his long cudgel without looking at the world body. Pang! Jian Wushuang was greatly taken back. This strength! Jian Wushuang's world body sensed the terrifying power through the heart-killing sword and was knocked back. Gong Chao charged forward like a thunderbolt as his stone cudgel, with its mighty power, released thunderbolt-like staff shadows to suppress his opponent. Bang! 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 Jian Wushuang waved his heart-killing sword to resist the terrifying attacks, but after deflecting a dozen staff shadows, the world body was knocked down, causing a huge pit to form in the ground. Thwack! The broken stones were suddenly stirred up as the world body rose into the air. Meanwhile, the slaughter body was picking up the triple kill sword. The two original bodies stood side by side while staring at Gong Chao. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Gong Chao's strikes caused the triple kill sword to be knocked away and the world body to fall to the ground. His terrifying battle strength shook everyone. The second occult. He has comprehended the second occult of the Thunderbolt Tao. Unbelievable. The experts in Skyward Pavilion were stupefied. They all felt the terrifying power that Gong Chao released. It was obviously the second occult of the Thunderbolt Tao. It was incredible. As for the Tao comprehension, it would be harder and harder to make breakthroughs. The geniuses who entered the top 20 had only comprehended the first occult. Most of them just started to touch the second occult. Even Jian Wushuang had only comprehended a small part of the second occult of the world Tao. Although Qianqiu Wuhan had a high understanding of the second occult, he still had a long way to go. However, Gong Chao had a full understanding of the second occult of the Thunderbolt Tao. Monster! What a monster! A skyscraping realm genius that has a full understanding of the second occult of the Thunderbolt Tao? How is this possible? Everyone was stunned. I throw in the towel. Jian Wushuang spoke as his two original bodies merged into one. His words caused an uproar for a while. Gong Chao had already shown battle strength of the second occult, so it was unbelievable that Jian Wushuang would be able to push him farther than this. How could he fight against Gong Chao? Hearing that, the spectators shook their heads inwardly. I have a better understanding of the world Tao after 1 month of meditation at Enlightenment Mountain, but I haven't mastered the second occult as he did. Jian Wushuang was astonished at his opponent's strength. He knew he still had a chance to win if he fought to the death. I might be able to defeat him if I use my strongest sword soul and the strength from my flawless foundation. Jian Wushuang was deep in thought. He had only exerted 80% of his sword soul power. He had pretended that he was at the ordinary skyscraping realm. If he used the superb strength that his flawless foundation provided, he would be stronger than he was now. However, Jian Wushuang did not intend to do so. After all, Emperor Shao had asked him not to expose his strongest sword soul and flawless foundation. And he had proven himself, so there was no need to fight to the finish. The battles between the strongest geniuses ended. Gong Chao won. In many experts' eyes, the result was unsurprising, but it was not easy. The two duelers' strength was out of their expectations, far superior to the geniuses in the previous Firmament Territory feasts. Gong Chao had comprehended the Yin-Yang Dao and the second occult of the Thunderbolt Dao. It was rare to see such a monster in the eternal world. Jian Wushuang had also shown his terrifying strength. After all, he came from the ancient world, a plain world. No one paid him any mind when the feast began, but now his strength shamed the other geniuses. He had comprehended the World Dao and Slaughter Dao, and his terrifying sword soul power might be the strongest among the other geniuses. He had also invented a rank 2 secret skill, as had Gong Chao. Furthermore, he had mastered the doppelganger secret skill. Only Gong Chao was able to defeat him in this feast. As for Qianqiu Wuhan, he ranked third. Qianqiu Wuhan had displayed his incredible strength during the fight with Feng, but he was still far inferior to Jian Wushuang and Gong Chao. Chapter 647, The Arena Battle Ends. Chapter 647, The Arena Battle Ends. As the fighting went on, Jian Wushuang moved to the outside of the battlefield to stand with Feng, side by side, watching the fighting quietly. It's a pity that you encountered Gong Chao so early, otherwise you would have had a chance to make it into the top 2 among everyone, Feng said to Jian Wushuang flatly while looking at him. Jian Wushuang replied with a smile, it's also a pity that you encountered Qianqiu Wuhan, or you would have made it into the top 5. Both of them had the bad luck of encountering someone who was more powerful than them. Whatever, our business is done in the arena battle, Jian Wushuang said reluctantly. Their journey in that battle ended with them being ranked inside the top 20. As they were watching, the fight for the top 10 was over, and all the 10 winners could get 100,000 divine gems as a prize for their rankings. In no time, those people started fighting for the top 3. Half a day passed during these hot battles, and finally, the arena battle ended. The list of the top 3 geniuses came out, which was based on the participants' performances. Without question, Gong Chao was number 1. He was so powerful that Jian Wushuang was the only one who had been able to force him to try his hardest. The others all lost to him before he even had to show his real power. As for the number 2 expert, people had thought it should be Qianqiu Wuhan. However, it turned out to be a slovenly girl who had attracted little attention during the previous rounds and unexpectedly defeated Qianqiu Wuhan with a burst of her power in the last round. The girl was named Jing Xianzi. Qianqiu Wuhan was ranked number 3. In fact, everyone present knew that if Jian Wushuang had not met Gong Chao during the battle, he could have taken Qianqiu Wuhan's place in the rankings. The girl named Jing Xianzi has really got some power, Jian Wushuang murmured. He had witnessed the fight between her and Qianqiu Wuhan and was astonished by her power. She is indeed mighty with a gift in the water drop Dao. However, you can absolutely overpower her if you battle her with your original body and doppelganger at the same time, Feng chimed in. Maybe. Jian Wushuang forced a smile. As soon as the arena battle was over, experts from every sect immediately started recruiting new disciples. The top 3 geniuses all received invitations from the 3 magnates, while the others within the top 10 were sought after by some other top sections. And as for Jian Wushuang and Feng, the outstanding 2 in the battle, they had not received an invitation from any sect, not even from a medium-sized one. It shouldn't be like this. Jian Wushuang frowned. Although he was from the ancient world, he believed that his performance in the battle was good enough to earn him an invitation from a top sect. As he was lost in confusion, he got a message from the token that Xian Yi had given him. Jian Wushuang, I'll have you be our inner disciple, so go to the ancient sect with me. The information was clear, Xian Yi would give him a place among their inner disciples. But aside from this, nothing else, such as the guidance of the Eternal Realm experts, was promised. To be an inner disciple of the ancient sect? Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up. Feng and Huaying standing beside him received a message from Xian Yi as well, and they looked very happy. Jian Wushuang looked at them and asked, "What are your results?" "I've been accepted as an inner disciple," Feng answered with joy. "So have I." Huaying cried out excitedly. Obviously, Xian Yi had accepted all of them as inner disciples. And to them, this was as good of a chance as it was to be the inner disciples of the three magnates. "And what about you three?" Jian Wushuang turned to Bing Shan, Xianing, and Wu Huang behind him. Those three had been kicked out during the first round of the arena battle, but they had chosen to wait in the drill ground since then. The three of them exchanged glances before Bing Shan replied, "We only got invitations as outer disciples." "That's not bad," Huaying said to comfort them. "Yeah." Those three nodded with looks of satisfaction on their faces. The ancient sect was even greater than the three magnates in some way, therefore, what they could gain from the sect as outer disciples would be no less than if they were inner disciples of other top sections. "I can't wait to cultivate in the ancient sect." Wu Huang clenched his hands. "Be patient. The Firmament Territory Feast isn't over and the fourth round of genius battles is yet to begin." Feng laughed at him. However, those words reminded Jian Wushuang of what the host had said, that there were 4 rounds of genius battles in total. At that moment, the fourth round was yet to begin. Normally, as all remarkable geniuses had been selected out during the first 3 rounds, there was no need to hold a fourth round, so the Firmament Territory Feast would come to an end at this point. This matter confused Jian Wushuang very much. What is exactly the purpose of the fourth round? All the geniuses who had survived the third round were gathered on the drill ground, and they all shared the same feeling as Jian Wushuang. As if he had seen through those geniuses' confusion, the host looked around and explained to them. The fourth round of genius battles is the most important part of the Firmament Territory Feast, and everyone who has participated in the arena battle could participate in this round as well. The most important part? The geniuses were surprised. The next moment, the host's voice echoed again. As all of you know, the aim of the previous 3 rounds is to examine your power, but in fact, one's current power could not be a determinant of whether he is talented or not. Therefore, the purpose of the fourth round is to discover the talent and potential in you. And the results of this round will only be decided by time. The host's voice was loud and clear. By time. The geniuses were even more confused. Chapter 648, The Fourth Round of Genius Battles. Chapter 648, The Fourth Round of Genius Battles. As the host was explaining everything, his sonorous voice echoed throughout the place. What kind of person could be called a genius? Someone who can achieve in 1 year what it takes others 10 years. For example, it may take an ordinary man thousands of years to reach the eternal realm from the skyscraping realm, but a real genius can do that within just hundreds of years. Time can prove many things. Therefore, with all of you being in the skyscraping realm, the time that you've spent cultivating to reach that realm and how long you've been in it will be the best proof of your talent. This is how the fourth round works. Upon hearing this, the geniuses were finally able to understand the rule. It was true that one's talent and potential could be seen through his years of cultivation. Taking the ordinary warriors in the ancient world as an example, from the day they started cultivating, it might take one of them hundreds of years to reach the Saint Realm, while for someone else, just dozens of years to achieve the same thing. Needless to say, the latter was clearly more gifted. Having said that, the rule of the fourth round was practicable indeed. I never thought that our cultivation time would be the measurement of the fourth round. Huaying frowned tightly and echoed in an undertone. I have to admit that it makes sense, but the point is that we're from ancient world. The less favorable conditions in our world decrees that it takes us more time to reach the skyscraping realm than those from the eternal world. Someone chimed in. Yes, you're right. It's unfair. Unfair indeed. Feng nodded in agreement. The 5 geniuses from the ancient world all complained about the rule, as they knew that they were doomed to lose this battle. Due to the poor cultivating conditions in their homeworld, they had all spent a rather long time in cultivation, especially Huaying. We have no chance to beat them if we compare our cultivation ages. By this time, they were sufficiently discontented. However, Jian Wushuang might have been the exception among them. He had an odd expression while thinking, the measurement will be cultivation time. Well, it hasn't been long since I started cultivating. In the skyward pavilion, the experts from the sects glanced at those geniuses from the ancient world with eyes full of pity. Those poor boys are going to be embarrassed. That's for sure. Being born with limited resources, in no way could they cultivate faster than those from the eternal world. Considering that it's so hard for them to break through to the skyscraping realm in the ancient world, all 6 of them must have cultivated for 1,000 years. The mighty Jian Wushuang among them might have cultivated even longer. He probably is 3,000 or 4,000 years old now. Those from the eternal world are far superior to them. I reckon that few of them have cultivated for over 800 years. Gong Chao, Jing Xianzi, Chenqiu Wuhan, and Jian Wushuang, I dearly want to know how long they have cultivated. Especially Jian Wushuang, I'd love to see if he really is over the age of 4,000. But, we all know that an ordinary skyscraping realm expert can't live for more than 4,000 years, so Jian Wushuang should be under that age. Even if he has taken some precious elixirs to prolong his life, he can't make it to more than 5,000 years old, all the same. Those experts were waiting to see Jian Wushuang and the other 5 lost face. On the drill ground, with a gesture from the host, a short elder turned up who had a special aura. This is Elder Cho. The host introduced the elder to the geniuses. He has some unique methods to examine your cultivation age and the time you've been in the skyscraping realm. Now, go take your examination one by one when I read your name. After glancing around, the host read out the first name, Gu Ling. The man named Gu Ling immediately walked over to the elder. I need a drop of your blood, Elder Cho said to him. Doing as ordered, Gu Ling gave the elder a drop of blood, which was then put into a special container. A moment later, the results came out. Your cultivation age is no more than 350 years, and you've been in the skyscraping realm for 200 years, Elder Cho announced directly. 350 years? Not bad. The experts in Skyward Pavilion praised him. The host continued, the next one is. One by one, the geniuses went forward to take the test. The results showed that most of the geniuses from the eternal world had a short cultivation age, with a range of 300 to 500 years. A small number of them had an age of 600 years. But there were very few with a cultivation age over 800 years. After the previous 3 rounds, the weak had been eliminated and only the strong remained. 800 years were sufficient for a strong one to become a divine realm expert, which was impossible for the geniuses from the ancient world, however. Chenqiu Wuhan. When Chenqiu Wuhan's name was called, everyone looked at him. As one of those most outstanding geniuses, he had gotten much attention from others. In a minute or two, Elder Cho announced his result. Your cultivation age is between 780 and 790 years, and you've been stuck in the skyscraping realm for over 600 years. Chenqiu Wuhan's result was beyond the expectations of everyone in the Skyward Pavilion and those who had thought highly of him. 780 years in cultivation and 600 years in the skyscraping realm were rather long times compared with those of the geniuses in the eternal world. In view of this, Chenqiu Wuhan's talent was not that satisfying despite his mighty power. Chapter 649, Cultivation Age. Chapter 649, Cultivation Age. Bastard! Chenqiu Wuhan could not help cursing to himself. Actually, he could have broken into the divine realm several hundred years ago. However, in order to impress others with the feeling that his power was high above his realm, he had intentionally avoided breaking through. He had never thought that he would be swallowed up among many other geniuses. Bad luck had caught him in succession. First, he had been overpowered by Gong Chao and Jian Wushuang, then, Jing Xianzi, out of nowhere, had come to defeat him, and now, when he finally could have been ranked top 3, the fourth round frustrated him again. The test pushed him into the situation where he could not hide his secret anymore. I had thought he was a genius of extraordinary talent, but now I've learned it's just because he has cultivated much longer than the others. He doesn't deserve to be our inner disciple. Go tell him that we'll revoke our previous invitation, and to show our mercy, we can take him as an outer disciple. A black-haired elder from Cloud Sea Asgard ordered his men. The middle-aged man from the Immortal Dynasty and the girl from the Boundless Demons sect gave out a similar order as well. Next up, Feng. When Feng's name was called, all the geniuses on the drill ground looked at him with interest. He was the first one from the ancient world to take the test. You've cultivated for over 1,900 years, and for about 1,800 of them, you've been in the skyscraping realm. Feng forced a bitter smile at the results, while the other geniuses could not help sighing. So far, the longest cultivation time for the Eternal World geniuses was 810 years, far shorter than 1,900 years. Xian Yi, is he the trash that you thought so highly of? He is a good-for-nothing, said the elder from Cloud Sea Asgard coldly. I don't think so. Xian Yi gave him an easy smile. We all know that the conditions in the ancient world are quite disadvantageous to those cultivators, so I think he's done well to have made it so far. Besides, you also heard that he's been in the skyscraping realm for the remaining 1,800 years, which means it has only taken him 100 years to reach that realm. He indeed has got some talent. Whatever, that's no excuse for his poor results. The elder did not change his mind. Xian Yi shrugged with no desire to argue with him further. The test continued on. Hua Ying, Bing Shan, Xian Ying, and Wu Huang followed Feng in taking their turns. Among those four, the latter three all had cultivated for more than 2,000 years, and Wu Huang had even cultivated longer than 2,800 years. As for Hua Ying, who had the longest among the rest of them, his cultivation life was an amazing 3,700 years. That number caused the other geniuses to cry out in surprise. Next is Gong Chao. The voice of the host quieted down the whole drill ground, as well as the skyward pavilion. Everyone held their breath to see Gong Chao's result. They all wanted to know how long this number 1 genius, the terrifying monster, had cultivated. If it turned out to be more than 800 years, his fame as the number 1 genius would be challenged. But, if it were to be a much shorter time, such as 300 or 400 years, he would be able to protect his fame. Gong Chao. Jian Wushuang watched him closely. This person was the only one among everyone in the Firmament Territory feast that he took seriously. From the very beginning, he had been keeping an eye on him. Under everyone's gaze, Gong Chao went over to Elder Qiu and gave him a drop of his blood. In no time, the elder announced the result in an astonished voice. You've cultivated for less than 120 years and reached the skyscraping realm only 50 years ago. A commotion began on the drill ground the very moment that those words were uttered. Less than 120 years? Unbelievable. Jing Xianzi was frozen for a moment. Although her cultivation life of 210 years was shorter than that of many others, Gong Chao's was nearly half of hers. In the Skyward Pavilion, the experts from every sect were thrilled at Gong Chao's results. They praised him in amazement. Genius, exceptional genius. I thought that he should have cultivated for over 400 years, but it turns out that it's so much shorter. 120 years. It's amazing that he could make it so far in a short 120 years. Right then, Gong Chao heard his name echo throughout the place from the room on the top floor of the Skyward Pavilion. I'm the 9th Elder of Cloud Sea Asgard, Shi Chenhan. The voice continued, you're so gifted that I want to invite you to be our disciple. All our resources for cultivation will be open to you, and I'll help you earn personal guidance from our master. As long as you try hard, I ensure you that you can reach the eternal realm in 10,000 years. Are you willing to accept my invitation? Those words startled all the geniuses present. They could not believe that the 9th Elder of Cloud Sea Asgard had wanted to recruit Gong Chao with such attractive conditions. Personal guidance from a Super Dao Master. This was something that many experts would pursue their entire lifetime. In addition to that, there was the promising future of reaching the Eternal Realm in 10,000 years waiting for Gong Chao. Those conditions gave such a thrill to the geniuses, even though they were not for them. As Gong Chao was considering it, more invitations from the other sects began to come his way. Chapter 650, Jian Wushuang's Cultivation Time. Chapter 650, Jian Wushuang's Cultivation Time. Gong Chao, as long as you join our immortal dynasty, we will try hard to train you and ensure that you reach the Eternal Realm within 10,000 years. With luck, you may be able to do it in 3,000 years. We can do that for you too, Gong Chao. What's more, our master has planned to accept a personal disciple. Because you are so talented, that lucky guy will probably be you. Someone from the Boundless Demons sect chimed in. Those two sects tried to attract Gong Chao with their offerings as well. The two of you. Seeing that there were two more competitors, Shi Qianhan shouted angrily. What? You have made your offer, so why can't we? The man from the Immortal Dynasty yelled back coldly. Fine, I'd love to see if your conditions are really more attractive than ours. Shi Qianhan's voice was icy yet confident. The competition for Gong Chao between the three sects confused the onlookers. The other experts in the Skyward Pavilion were surprised as well. They had never seen anyone before that was wanted by all three of the magnates. At last, Cloud Sea Asgard was victorious over the other two sects due to its irresistible offerings. Then, Gong Chao became their disciple. The two failed sects had to give up, however unwilling they might have been. The test of the geniuses' cultivation ages went on. Finally, it was Jian Wushuang's turn. Next up, Jian Wushuang. The moment that his name was called, many people began to look at him. As the only one who had managed to force Gong Chao to go all out, it would have been hard for him to go unnoticed. Now, Jian Wushuang is going to take the test. How long do you think he has cultivated? The voice of the man from the Immortal Dynasty again echoed in the Skyward Pavilion. I think at least more than 2,000 years. That's too talented for him. I think it must be longer than Huiying. Maybe. But, considering that he has gotten some opportunities to gain the doppelganger's secret skill, he may have relied on something other than time to gain his current power. Those experts chatted with each other while watching Jian Wushuang take his test. Mr. Xian Yi, Jian Wushuang is your disciple. Are you really not interested in his cultivation time? The girl from the Boundless Demons sect asked Xian Yi. Those sects had promised Xian Yi that they would give up trying to recruit all the 6 geniuses from the ancient world, so in their eyes, Jian Wushuang was already a member of the ancient sect. Xian Yi laughed at the girl's words. Since I've accepted him as our inner disciple, it doesn't matter how long he has cultivated. Even if he is more than 4,000 years old and at the day of his doom, I won't change my mind and I'll help him go further. Shi Qianhan interrupted their talk with irony in his voice. If he is really that old, he is indeed trash in view of his current power. Does he deserve your care and help? I'll just say it, you are just wasting your time and resources. We have nothing but time and resources in our sect, so as long as I want, I can push him up to the Eternal Realm. That's beyond your reach, isn't? Xian Yi sneered and fought back. On hearing this, Shi Qianhan's face darkened slightly. It would take so many resources to push a skyscraping realm expert up to the Eternal Realm that only the 3 magnates were able to do it. However, even if they were to do that, the cost would be too high. And being just one of the elders in Cloud Sea Asgard, Shi Qianhan was in no position to try it. He was different from Xian Yi. Xian Yi was recognized as the #1 Eternal Realm expert in the Firmament territory, second only to his master in the ancient sect. In addition to that, he possessed many treasures himself, so it was easy for him to achieve that. Whatever, if you want to waste your money, go right ahead, Shi Qianhan said coldly. Let's wait and see. On the drill ground, as Jian Wushuang walked over to Elder Qiu, everyone's eyes were fixed on him. Even Gong Chao looked at him with sharp eyes. Jian Wushuang. He watched him closely. Jian Wushuang was the only one in the Firmament Territory feast that he regarded as his opponent. Though he had defeated him, he still thought that Jian Wushuang had restrained his power when battling him. When Jian Wushuang walked up to Elder Qiu, the latter ordered him in an icy voice. "Give me a drop of your blood." Jian Wushuang immediately squeezed a drop of blood out from his finger. The elder put the blood into the container and started examining it. After being calm for several moments, the elder suddenly had a shocked expression on his face. "How could this be possible?" he murmured. He could not believe his eyes and then looked up at Jian Wushuang. "Please give me one more drop of your blood." "Okay." Jian Wushuang nodded and did as he had been told. This time, the elder examined the blood with more scrutiny, but to his surprise, the result was still the same. "It can't be. This. He stared at Jian Wushuang in horror as if he was staring at a ghost. He opened his mouth and tried to say something, but for a while, not a sound escaped his mouth. The host saw his unusual behavior and asked with concern, "What's the matter, Elder Qiu?" The elder hemmed and hawed, and after taking a deep breath, he turned over to face the skyward pavilion and bowed. Finally, he could speak again. "Ladies and gentlemen, Jian Wushuang's result has come out." His voice betrayed his astonishment, echoing throughout the whole place. "It has been less than 40 years since he started cultivating." "What?" Everyone was startled by those words. Less than 40 years? And he has been in the skyscraping realm for less than 1 year. The elder's voice echoed again. "You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.